For Wrexham, December looked promising. Points on the board, a bit of daylight from the drop zone.
After the Preston thrashing, anything that wasn't collapse felt like relief.
Then January and February happened. Not a collapse, not a surge, just nothing moving. So the question isn't, how are Wrexham playing? It's what are they becoming?
December gave us space. January and February tested what we did with it.
This is where managers start lying to themselves. Not because it's bad, but because it isn't bad enough to force change. Let's start with December. Results improve. The table calms down. For the first time in a while, it feels like you've got room to breathe.
Yes, but breathing room isn't momentum. It just buys you time.
Time you don't always know how to spend.
Exactly.
January and February don't look disastrous, but they don't look convincing either. Draws, narrow losses, the kind of results that don't move the needle, but don't snap it in half.
That's the most uncomfortable place to be.
Why?
Because nothing's obviously wrong, and nothing's clearly right.
So the table says safe.
But it doesn't say secure.
Just for now.
That's the risk.
Behind the scenes, though, it wasn't quiet. Injuries kept stacking up.
At a certain point, you stop adjusting for injuries and start managing around absence.
Which usually exposes depth.
Or the lack of it.
So you went into the market. 3 loans. Short-term fixes.
Short-term support.
Southampton's Nathan Wood brought pace at the back.
And calm. Which we didn't always have.
Micah Hamilton added legs and ideas in midfield.
Energy more than invention. That mattered.
And Brighton's teenage starlet Tommy Watson gave you something unpredictable out wide.
In a good way.
He made an immediate impact. 2 assists in 4 games, player of the match against Ipswich.
Because he played without the weight of it.
Then, he gets injured.
Yes, which is why we moved in the first place.
Which is the risk with short-term support. It works, until it doesn't.
It was an acknowledgement, not a solution.
You also had meetings with the team that didn't land.
Yes, that happens when results stall.
Not arguments, just resistance.
Silence is usually the sign.
That's when leadership stops being about inspiration and starts being about repetition. The same standards every week.
And consistency.
And when form flattens, the noise gets louder. Fans openly questioning decisions. Tactics suddenly under a microscope.
The tactics didn't change much. The reaction to them did.
That's football.
That's pressure.
So where does that leave Wrexham? Not sliding, not climbing, just hovering above the line.
That's the part people get wrong.
Because hovering feels safe.
Because it still demands decisions.
Nobody gets sacked for hovering. Nobody gets promoted either. So, the fairy tale 4th promotion's gone. Relegation isn't imminent.
So this season becomes something else.
Which is?
Consolidation.
Consolidation's the word managers use when progress refuses to introduce itself. Not glamorous.
But necessary.
And the table?
It tells you where you are. It doesn't tell you who you're becoming,